I'm Adam Roberts. I've been a health coach with the OSU Health Plan now. This will be 8 years that I've been there doing this. And my background is in exercise physiology. I kind of transitioned from cardiac rehab and personal training to health coaching.
And I'm Amanda. I will hit my 1-year anniversary in February here with the health coaching team. And I came from a career in career and wellness counseling and came to the health coaching team to kind of help with a lot of the stress management and emotional well-being topics.
Okay. So we thought create healthy habits. How many of you guys are starting a new goal in the new year? Maybe not a New Year's resolution per se, but you're starting things off. Looks like a lot of you guys, which is really great. When I coach someone, I usually ask them, like in January, like, do you have a New Year's resolution? And it's kind of a taboo word almost because it's a big commitment to have this big goal that's going to last you all year long. So to think about this thing that you're going to accomplish by December. A lot of the time, like I go by Planet Fitness right now, and it's like you can't find a spot in the parking lot to get in there. And so it's discouraging to some people because they're like, it's too crowded. But probably by the middle of February, half of the spots are going to be open again. And you're going to be able to get back in there because something's going to happen. It's going to throw someone off a little bit. And the purpose of today is to think about how can we create real habits that are long-lasting, not something that I'm saying I'm going to commit to and I might do it, but how can we come up with this plan to actually get there? These are the stages of change. We thought we would start with the stages of change because it's really important to recognize where you are in this model with the goals that you're setting. So sometimes we think that I'm in action, and I'm in action in everything that I'm doing. And for those of you that don't know a lot about the stages of change, there's pre-contemplation, and that's really where you might know something's good for you, but you're not really ready to work on it. And contemplation, you're starting to think about it. You're not ready to take action on that, but it could be a couple months away that you're going to start taking action. Preparation is where you're building that plan. You're sitting down, you're thinking about, if I did this, this is what I would do to get there. And then action it's a big experiment. You're starting to go to the gym, you're figuring out what you like, you're starting to eat these new foods. You're thinking about, oh, this is really boring, I'm not going to eat this anymore, I need to find a new recipe. That's action. And then maintenance, you've kind of figured it out. You're at this place where you're just keeping it up. It's a lot easier than it was before. And I was just discussing this with Amanda. I was looking at the stages of change, and they added a number 6. That was a bit confusing. The 6th stage, they call it termination, which sounds kind of negative, and it almost sounds like you're going backwards. But in termination, you're actually at a place where you've been in maintenance for 2 years, and there's not a risk of relapse. So you could be in action, and things could fall apart, and you could bounce to one of these other stages. But you could be in maintenance, and something really dramatic happens, and that could take you back a few steps. And this happens a lot. With the stages of change, it's important to realize when you're setting goals, each time we set goals, we want to make sure we're being successful. So we're creating these small steps, we're building success, we're feeling good about that. That's going to keep us going. If we're setting goals and we're not achieving them, we're going to start getting discouraged, and then we might fall off the track that we want to be on. It's important to know that I could be in action in exercise, but that doesn't mean that I'm in action in nutrition. I could be in preparation. I could be thinking about it. Do I need to start food tracking, or do I need to come up with these meal plans? I need to go grocery shopping. How am I going to fit this in so I'm consistent with it? And then the same for stress management, for hydration, for sleep. for all kinds of things, it's important to think about what stage am I in? Because if I'm forcing a goal in one of these areas and I'm not in this action phase yet, you're not going to be building success in that area, and it's not going to feel good. So it's okay not to be in action in every single goal area that you have. You can definitely be in different ones and take things on as you're ready to do that. The journey is like a stair step. You're climbing. You're not going to go from I'm not moving at all to I'm moving this 300 plus minutes per week, and I'm nailing all my goals. I'm eating 8 to 11 fruits and vegetables a day. I'm managing my stress fantastically. It takes time to build there. Every week, there's going to be new challenges. There's new things that pop up on your Outlook calendar, or things that you don't think about that happen with your family. So sometimes we take a couple steps forward and we take a step back, and we got to keep pushing. So it might take us a while to get to this place where we're at this top step, and we're getting close to termination, I guess. But with the stair step, I like to think of the bottom step as kind of where you're at now with some things. And then the top step, we kind of consider that to be what we call your wellness vision. And we'll explain the wellness vision. But basically, that's where you're going long term. That's what you're working towards. And it's important to kind of lay that out before you decide, what should my goals be for this week, or what kind of routine should I build?
All right. Let's see if my mic's working now. So before we get into kind of the goal setting and planning process, we wanted to break down a little bit about some tips for forming habits and what some of the science is saying really helps us form a habit. So this is the habit loop. It is kind of how habits are structured. And we thought the best way to really convey this to you, we have a little video to share. This is the author who wrote a book all about this and did a lot of the research. So we're going to let him kind of tell you all about the habit loop.
Imagine for a moment that you have a habit that you really want to change. Let's say, for instance, you go up to the cafeteria every afternoon and you eat a chocolate chip cookie. This habit has caused you to gain a little bit of weight. In fact, this habit has caused you to gain exactly 8 pounds, and your wife has started making some pointed comments. And when I say you, what I really mean is me, because this is a habit that I had that I just couldn't kick. To understand why that habit was so powerful, and what it would take to change it, I had to learn how habits work. Every habit functions the same way. At first, there's a cue, some type of trigger that makes the behavior unfold automatically. Studies tell us that a cue can be a location, a time of day, a certain emotional state, other people, or just a pattern of behaviors that consistently triggers a certain routine. To figure out the cue for my craving, I spent a few days tracking exactly when the urge to eat a cookie hit. And what I noticed pretty soon was something interesting. The cookie craving always hit about between 3 o'clock and 3:30 in the afternoon. That was my cue. It was a certain time of day. The next part in the habit loop is the routine, the behavior itself. And for me, that was pretty easy to figure out. Every day between 3 and 3:30, I'd get this craving for a cookie. I'd get up out of my chair. I'd walk over to the elevator. I'd take the elevator up to the 14th floor. I'd get out. I'd buy a cookie, and then I would eat it while talking to my colleagues in the cafeteria. The last part of the habit loop is the reward. And in some respects, the reward is the most important part, because that's why habits exist, so that we can get the rewards that we want. But figuring out a reward is kind of tricky. To figure out what reward was driving my habit, I did a little bit of an experiment. One day when the cookie urge struck, instead of going up to the cafeteria, I went outside and I took a walk around the block. Then the next day, I went up to the cafeteria, but instead of buying a cookie, I got a candy bar and then ate it at my desk. And then the day after that, I went up to the cafeteria again, but I didn't buy anything. Instead, I just talked to friends for about 10 minutes. You get the idea. What I was trying to do was test different hypotheses to figure out what reward I was actually craving. And what I figured out pretty quickly was it had nothing to do with cookies. It had to do with socializing. Nowadays what happens is, at about 3:30 in the afternoon, I absentmindedly stand up, I look around the office, I see a friend, I'll walk over and we'll gossip for 10 minutes and then I'll go back to my desk. The urge to go get a cookie has completely disappeared. The new behavior has become a habit, and I've lost about 12 pounds as a result. Studies have shown that if you can diagnose your habits, you can change them in whichever way you want. So what are the cues, routines, and rewards in your life? What habit do you want to change? The power of habit. Why we do what we do in life and business. Look.
All right. So, coming back to this slide here, we wanted to present this habit loop because we're going to talk about goal setting here towards the end of the presentation. So something really important to think about as you're thinking what changes you want to make, what new healthy behaviors you want to have, thinking about what's going to trigger that behavior. What's my cue? Is it a time of day? Is it a certain environment? The action, the behavior in the middle, we're going to talk more about that. Really important, which I'm going to get to next, is this reward. We are doing things mostly so we can feel better, so we can feel good. It's a really important part of the process. So which I'll talk about here in just a little bit. I guess what we wanted to do is kind of break down what the habit loop looks like with actual behavior. So if you are trying to create a new habit, this is something you haven't done before. For example, maybe you want to work out in the morning, you're not really a formal exerciser, maybe you're getting steps during the day, but this is something you want to try. So what's your cue? It could be the alarm goes off, I'm going to get out of bed. That's the first thing. It's kind of an action/environment. What is the new routine you want to have as soon as you get out of bed? Instead of going downstairs for coffee or going to the bathroom to brush your teeth, instead you're going to immediately put on those workout clothes and get what you need to go to the gym. And then you have to think about what's the reward here, what's going to help me feel good. So it could be just like noticing on your way to the gym, like, wow, I did it, I'm in the car, I'm doing it, that feels really great. Or maybe it's after the workout, you feel really energized, going through the rest of your day, really trying to notice what feels good about the action, the behavior you just had. If you're going to use the loop to change an old habit, you first have to kind of like he described in the video, do a quick assessment of what is the behavior I'm trying to change. Can you track what's going on around it? So maybe you want to, instead of like sitting and watching TV as soon as you get home from work, you want to just do something else. It could be other chores around the house. It could be a workout. It could be spending time with family. So the cue is you arrive home from work, you set your things down. Normally it's sit on the couch. So could you arrive home, set your things down, walk to the kitchen? Okay, and so then instead of watching TV, the TV maybe isn't there, you could do the dishes, wipe down the counters, prepare dinner, whatever it is you want to do. And again, kind of savor the good feelings from this. This is actually an example I used in my own life, where coming home after a long day, I felt like as soon as I sat down on the couch, like that couch is really sticky. It can just keep me there all night if I'm on it for too much. So I have all these things I wanted to do. I ended up doing them late into the night, kind of disrupting my bedtime. So now, as soon as I walk in, I go straight to that kitchen sink and I start doing whatever dishes are there, putting them away. And that spurs that activity for the rest of the night. What I noticed from that was I get more done. I get to bed on time. My mornings aren't as rushed because I've actually prepared more throughout the day. And so now I'm not even really watching TV until like much later in the evening. When I'm with my husband, it's something we do for fun. So again, the structure can really help kind of break down what needs to change and what's going on around the behavior that's going to help reinforce it. Which gets us to these rewards. So there's another author, B.J. Fogg. He wrote a book called Tiny Habits. And how many people have heard it takes like 28 days or 30 days or even 90 days to create a habit? Okay, yes. Real common. What he found in some of his research was that habits could form much more quickly if there was a strong positive emotion connected to the new behavior. I had another example of this in my life. I'll never forget. I was having like a really, really bad day. One day I was just like, I had all this stuff to do, but I was just feeling like really sluggish and kind of in an irritable mood. And there was this like half-eaten sleeve of Oreos on my counter from another day, and I kept like eyeballing them, and I'm like, I don't need to eat those. And I did that for like 4 hours, just sitting on my couch stewing about how miserable I felt. I finally got up and I just like ate the Oreos, and I felt immediately better. Like I was just like, oh, that's great. Okay, I'm gonna get on with my day. Like it did not take me 30 days to learn that Oreos are gonna give me that immediate pick-me-up. But that is not exactly the type of thing I want to do for energy or motivation. Like that's a slippery slope into a lot of extra sugar and just calories I don't need from that source. So when you're thinking about creating a new behavior, sometimes the new things we're trying to do, they're unfamiliar to us. They don't already live in our day-to-day lives. Like our schedules don't have room for them. They may be actions we're not very good at yet. Like I'm working on a new exercise routine. Like I'm not super coordinated. The moves are hard. I feel sore. Like there's a lot of unpleasantness sometimes with new endeavors. There's challenge involved. So we have to think about, how am I going to make this new thing that maybe I need to practice, that maybe I really need to plan and prepare for, a little fun, a little enjoyable, so I can really like get that motivation, that drive that I want to do it again, so that it's fun for me. And our emotions are a big source of that. When we're talking about the reward as well, another area of research has found we can kind of like hijack the reward system of our brain. That kind of dopamine that gets, that's why Oreos work so well. That is like sugar and fat straight to our brains, releasing all kinds of feel-good chemicals that just hit us in that sweet spot right away. We want to try to like create that through healthier means. So we want whatever reward we feel, especially if we can have a kind of strong positive emotional reaction, to be immediate during the behavior or immediately after. So for example, if you're someone who's like, well, I'm gonna do this workout routine, and if I do it at like the 3 times a week for the week, then on the weekend I'll go get a manicure. That's fine. That you do want those kinds of long-term rewards, something to look forward to. But what's going to reward you during the week while you're going to that workout? While you're actually like on the treadmill, or as soon as you're leaving the gym or wherever you're doing that workout. So it kind of brings us to these emotions. These are just a sample of some positive emotions that really work well for us. They feel good. Physiologically, they're kind of exciting all of our like internal systems at kind of their optimal levels. When we're in stress, we're in a very inefficient kind of draining state. These bring us back to a really good baseline that feels good. It's energizing. And again, it can be releasing some things in our brain, some chemicals that are really rewarding. Now, B.J. Fogg, who we saw on the previous slide, an emotion he really advocates for is success, or a sense of accomplishment. He said that's one that we can kind of leverage for ourselves immediately to kind of help us get that positive boost of energy and emotion to feel really good. So, and this comes from an article, it was from time.com. I kind of took it from the list that was in there. These were all his examples of ways that you can leverage success to reward yourself in the moment. So it might be like, okay, I got up out of bed, I put my running shoes on, I got my workout clothes on, like, yes, yay me, I did it. You could high-five yourself like in the mirror on your way out the door. You could hum a happy little tune while you're running on the treadmill. Maybe you're thinking of like the Rocky theme or something. You could just throw yourself a little mental party. There's a couple of reasons why this works. One, it's going to be a little silly, and if you're someone who has a good sense of humor about yourself, that little chuckle, that little like, this is kind of silly but fun, that's a good positive feeling, and that's going to feel good in the moment. The other thing is it's going to force you to focus on what you are doing, what is working, the steps you are taking, and acknowledge, hey, I did this thing today. I haven't been getting up at 6 a.m. prior to this to go try this workout, but today I did it, yes. As opposed to, I haven't done it for all these months, I'm probably not going to get to it tomorrow. So just having that more positive focus for yourself is going to help bring a little levity to the process as you're working on establishing this new behavior and where it fits in your day. Which kind of brings us to then the goal setting and planning process. So I'll turn it back to Adam.
So there are 4 steps that we laid out for you guys when you're developing your goals, and I really like, and when I work with members, I walk them through, these steps when we do our calls and everything together. The first one is the wellness vision that I touched on before. It's a really important piece because it's this long-term goal that you're laying out. When you're saying things like, I want to exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes, or I want to eat better. Why do you want to do those things? What is that going to get you? This vision that we're going to look at, it's how you see yourself. And it could be 12 months from now, it could be longer. But it's all these things that you're working towards. How are we going to get to this place? And we'll look at an example here. The next thing that you're going to do is we're going to look at where we're currently at, because probably there are things that we're already doing that are pretty good. We want to keep those things up, but there are some things that we need to add to our plan and try to experiment with. Before we get into action and we get to this 4th step where we're experimenting and learning, there's this, we talked about the preparation phase and the stages of change, and that's where you're creating your action plan. If you don't have this plan designed, then things are just a little less structured, and it might take you a little bit longer to get to the finish line. And I kind of think of this as, I'm really bad about food tracking. I know if I have a goal of losing weight or like gaining healthy weight, calories in and calories out are an important part of that. They're a big part of that equation. And if I'm tracking what I'm eating and I'm hitting the marks, I'm going to get there a lot faster than if I'm guessing and thinking, I did pretty well today, and trying to string some of those days together. It's really going to help. So the plan's really important. The wellness vision, I like to think of the SMART term goals that you're setting. They're these stepping stones that are going to get you to this place. And it's important for you to create this. And this could be a big part of your motivation. Some of the pieces of the wellness vision could be things that you've already had before. Maybe there was a time in your life where you were really thriving, you were feeling great, you were doing all these great things. That might be part of it, but there may be new things that you haven't accomplished yet that you really wanted to accomplish. And now you're building this plan that's going to get you those things. So it's important to start with things that are really going to invoke energy and be exciting, and they're going to help you focus and be really driven. It should motivate you to prioritize these things when you're really busy. We have all these work things and family obligations that are kind of up at the top. And then we think about, this exercise, like where's that at? Like how important is that? If something happens, it might be the first thing to go that day. Well, I'm not going to work out today now because this thing came up. So think about that. We're going to talk about motivation next and how to really key in and plug into motivation because it can be an important part of your resiliency. Writing, down or writing your vision as it's in the present tense. So we're going to look at the example next of the wellness vision, and you're making these statements like I am, or you're doing these things. You're seeing yourself, and that's what brings power to the vision. And then we want to make it to where I think everybody's kind of seeking balance. I know that for me, and I should do this since I'm an exercise physiologist, I'm at a pretty good place with my exercise. There's room for improvement in areas, but I'm always thinking I could manage my stress better. I don't really do a lot of yoga. I could probably do that. That would help me feel really great. I could probably eat a little bit better, things like that. And it's important to think about that in this wellness vision, and we'll take a look at that right now. So in this example, this statement is, I am strong, lean, and 10 pounds lighter. I wake up most mornings with plenty of energy to tackle whatever may come my way. I make it a priority to nourish my body with healthy food and invigorating physical activity and daily meditation. And then the second part, I have the energy to play with my kids. I enjoy the work I do and take time to regularly decompress. I feel grateful for my friends and family. So that's a pretty perfectly balanced example of a wellness vision. You have parts of it that talk about activity and nutrition and meditating and just being balanced. I don't think there's a lot of us that can say, I'm at my finish line. I'm a 10 out of 10 in all these areas. I've never met a person that's been that way. There's always usually a little bit of room for improvement. Motivation, it's really important in the beginning. A lot of you said that you're already kind of setting some goals, or you're already starting to do new things in the new year, which is really great. That means that you're already kind of motivated. And it's important to think about, what is motivating me to take all these new actions that I'm doing? What's pushing me to be different than I am right now? And when we think about this motivation, there's this intrinsic and there's extrinsic motivators. Intrinsic is motivation that comes from within, and extrinsic is everything external that you're kind of you're experiencing. And it could be the people around you, it could be a lot of different things, and we'll look at examples of that. When things get hard in the beginning and you're making all these changes, it's really important that you're surrounding yourself with the list of the things that motivate you, because that's going to help you get right back to your goals when you've been away from them for a couple days because something happened to you in your life. It's going to make it that much easier. So I'm going to let Amanda talk about intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, so we tried to give you at least broad general examples of both intrinsic and extrinsic, because the specifics are going to be really particular to each person. But in general, for the intrinsic side, a big theme across that is those positive emotions I talked about before. So if the thing you're doing can feel good, that's going to be motivating. We're more likely to want to do things that are enjoyable to us, that bring up some pleasant feelings and so on. A lot of these intrinsic motivators, they also might tap into our sense of meaning in life, what's important to us. They might tap into our values, how we want to live or who we strive to be. That's often reflected in that wellness vision. So tapping back into that why of, why am I starting this in the first place? That can be really good. And then also they're going to tap into that sense of success. If we can have that sense of accomplishment, feel like I'm trying to do something, I did it, I've had some small successes, some big successes. When we have a sense of success, whether big or small, it builds confidence, whereas new things, can feel challenging and unfamiliar, and we get a little wary of them. Doing it at least once, feeling like we did okay, that builds confidence, and then we're more likely to do it again.
Yeah, so I think it's important to start with these intrinsic motivators. Like, what's pushing me, inside to make these changes, and you have that. The external is kind of bonus. It's really hard to just rely on the second column here because you're not always going to be surrounded by your accountability team, your support. You're not always going to have these things right in front of you that are motivating you. So having these internal motivators is really important. But extrinsic can be important too. I think everyone, to have some extra support and accountability. We do that as coaches, making calls and say, hey, how are your goals going? What are you doing? But sometimes you have friends that you work out with, or they know, hey, you're making these changes, or you're on this journey. How's that going? And that feels good when someone takes interest in, your personal life and some of these things that you're doing on your journey. I like to make a list of, okay, what are these internal things that are pushing me and external, and when things go hard or I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I can look at that and think back to, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I need to surround myself with. So as things, get challenging, I'm going to keep moving forward.
Step number 2. So we took a long time to go over step number 1 because that wellness vision, it involves a lot of dreaming, a lot of discovery, really figuring out like what are my reasons for doing this. And once you have some of those reasons, kind of where you're headed, why that's important to you, it's time to really sit down and think about like what is the plan going to be. So we actually have, you're going to see this over email coming after the group, and I'll just kind of explain this a little bit with these steps here. First, we're going to give you a worksheet that has 9 dimensions of wellness. That's the dimensions of wellness OSU works with to kind of really take a good comprehensive look at our different areas of life that you can rate on a scale of 1 to 10. So you want to say, how satisfied am I with this, right? Is it going pretty well? Does it need a little bit of improvement? And then underneath that, you'll be able to say, do I want to work on this or not? Because sometimes, even if we look at an area of our life, we might think, yeah, it needs some work, but not right now, right? I'm just not ready to do this yet. For those areas that you do, in fact, want to work on, it's thinking about one small action that can take you up just 1 or 2 points in satisfaction. So if the wellness vision is 10 out of 10, that's where I feel great about everything, and you're at a 4 right now in that area, what's one small thing you could do to get up to a 5 or a 6 or a 7? Now, just to give you an example of this, I keep using this exercise example because that's what I'm currently working on right now. It's been a while since I've had a formal exercise routine, and I joined a gym back in December. So I'm trying to go to a gym now, and so I did this. I thought about, where am I beginning? What do I want to do? I kind of mapped out days of the week I thought I could go, and I picked 3 days that I was like, yep, I could get to the gym in the morning. I know what I'm doing when I'm there. I've got all the reasons why I want to go and what's fun about it. And so that was back in December. We're now at the end of January. I've averaged about once a week since then, and there was a good 2 weeks in the middle of this where I didn't go at all. So what I realized was that, I might have been at like a 3 or a 4 in this area, and I was aiming for what would have been my 8 or my 9, that 3 times a week. So I had to kind of scale back my goal a little bit and think about, all right, what is the smaller step here, right? I'm starting pretty low. So you know what? Going once a week is way better than what I was doing for a while. So I'm going to just practice that, get that really consistent, and see how I can move that going forward. So that's really what this exercise is about for you. And we're gonna send this worksheet as just like a guide that you could use if you wanna put a little structure to it. I think something important to keep in mind with any wellness model, whether there's 9 dimensions, there's 6, or anything in between, they are interdependent dimensions. So one small change in one area can affect change in other areas. Honestly, going to the gym 1 time a week doesn't feel like enough for me. It's not even the recommended amount of exercise. But it's helping me sleep on that day, and it feels really good to be getting it done. And I am eating better because I'm now working out. So even with that small change, other little ripple effects are happening, and it's a really good start. So you don't have to go right to the recommendation or right to your ideal. Start really small, make it really doable. And this exercise at this step is really where you get to think through what's that gonna look like for me. And there could be some revising that happens in step 2 as you're working this out.
All right, so we have our vision, and we have assessed, we started making, we're getting to the step 3 where we're making this action plan. And I'm sure a lot of you guys, like how many of you guys have heard of SMART goals before? Like everybody's heard of the SMART goal format. But this is where things go from a wish to I'm taking action, I'm actually doing it. And it happens when you're very specific about what you want to do, and you're really laying it out. And so we see the specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, these time-based things. That way, when you're in this next phase where you're experimenting, you're going to know what works and what doesn't work, because you're being really specific about your intentions to do some things. And we always like to end each session that we have with a SMART goal or 2, something that you can kind of work on over the next few weeks, and they're meant to change from time to time. They definitely evolve. This is a really basic example. I will walk for 30 minutes or a mile. I want to do 3 times a week. I'm going to try to do it on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. The morning would be the best time to do it. And my confidence level is an 8 that I can implement this action. Does anybody know, on the confidence scale, what is the magic number that we try to shoot for when we're setting a goal to know that this is a realistic, achievable goal? Does anybody know the number? It's a 7. So if you're a confidence level of a 7 or more, that means that you're pretty sure that you're going to at least be able to try it out and take some action. If you're setting goals and you think about this last step and you think about, I'm only a 5 or a 6, how can you make the goal to where your confidence is a 7 or more? That's a really important part, because there could be things that are still a little bit too big. She talked about jumping from 0 times to like 4 times or something like that a week for activity, when even just like 1 or 2 times would be really great from maybe the 0 that you were doing.
So in step number 4, you've got your SMART goal. You're going to give it a try. We really encourage you to think about your goals like experiments, right? You've identified this action you think is going to help you feel a certain way or bring a certain change into your life. It's a theory you need to test, right? We don't know if it's going to work yet or not. So you're going to go out into the world and you're going to try it, and you're going to learn if it works or if it doesn't. You're going to learn what supports it or what gets in the way of it, and you're going to be able to make adjustments from there. When you think of your goals like experiments that you can continually grow and change to make them work better for you, we get out of that success-fail mindset. It's really good to feel successful, but the second we start feeling like we failed, we're going to be less likely to try the thing again. We like to feel really confident. So if you go out into the world and you try it with this idea of an experiment and you learn it doesn't work, that's still a really successful experiment. Now you've got more information about how you can redesign it to get to a better outcome that you're looking for. You also really want to focus on your strengths and build upon the strategies that are working, and make sure that you are addressing all of the barriers and potential obstacles that could get in the way. We have this little graphic on here because it's a great representation of what trying something new actually looks like. There's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of things that can get in the way. There's stuff that just happens, like, you know, the weather can sometimes get in the way of what we're trying to do. We expect it to go really smoothly, but it rarely does. This is a really important concept to keep in mind with any behavior change, that a idea, an action, a change can be simple, but not easy. It is a simple concept to take a few deep breaths every day to manage your stress. It is not easy to remember to do that regularly at a certain time every day, or to breathe in the proper way that actually lowers those stress levels consistently and reliably if that's not something you've ever done before. So sometimes when I'm working with people in coaching and they're trying something new, even if it's a really simple concept, sometimes I'll say to them, like, all right, what if this isn't easy? What if this is the hardest thing you've ever done? How do you typically approach challenging projects or tasks, right? Maybe think about something at work or something at home. You're like, wow, this is huge. What am I going to do? Well, a lot of times when we're facing something challenging that we want to do and we know it's going to be tough, we plan, we prepare, we think, we rally support, we do research, we do all this extra work around it to really support our efforts as we go to face that challenge. So as you're thinking about different health and wellness goals, again, just because the idea of it seems simple, it could be really challenging to enact in real life. So approach it as you would any other challenge. Bring your preparation and your planning skills to this experiment because it will actually help it go a little smoother in the long run. Now we did plan a few kind of barriers and strategies to address them for you. Things that like we'll often hear in coaching, or just things even like we encounter sometimes as we're working on goals. I won't go into detail about all of them. There's really two that I wanted to focus on. So the one barrier that comes up a lot is self-criticism in response to setbacks or struggles. It kind of relates to the one before it of the like should or shouldn't talk. Like, I should be able to do this. It's so simple. Why can't I just get up in the morning and meditate? Or, man, I should have worked out harder. You know, I just didn't get there as many times as I thought I was going to. That type of self-criticism, even in minor, mild forms, it excites our stress response, that fight or flight mode. It feels, basically our body interprets it as a threat. And it throws us into stress, which is kind of draining and unpleasant. And it can happen really automatically. So bringing a little mindfulness about how you're talking to yourself about your efforts as you're trying a new habit, as you're trying some new changes, just pay attention to it. If you notice you're being kind of critical, just get curious about that. You know, what's going on there? Just say, oh, that was a little self-criticism, okay, and just kind of move on from it, right? You don't have to try to necessarily stop it if you're not there just yet, but just noticing it, bringing some awareness to it is a great first step to work on that. And then the antidote to it is self-compassion. Relating to yourself kindly as you are working on something new. As we said, any new thing is going to be unfamiliar and come with its certain levels of challenge and struggle. So think about if someone you really care about, a good friend, a family member, they're trying to do something and they're struggling. What would you say to them? You know, how would you help them? How would you encourage them? Most people are going to be pretty kind. They're going to be like, no, you got this. You can do it. Here, I'll help you if you tried this. You know, they're going to come at them with some positivity and some openness. If you can turn just an ounce of that back on yourself when you meet your own struggles and challenges, that can really make this process go a lot smoother. The other one that I like to talk about is relying solely on willpower or self-control. I'll hear this a lot. I just gotta get up and do it. I just gotta do it. And a lot of times I'll be like, well, what are you gonna just do? Or what does that mean? You know, what are we talking about here? We have this sense that, again, because it's simple, we should be able to just do. And sometimes it's a little trickier than that. So when we're looking at some of the research on self-control, there are some really interesting articles I found. When we're relying on our self-control and we say like, I have the self-discipline to just say no to those cookies, or I can be so disciplined that I will get up every morning at 6 a.m., no trouble. The people who rate themselves really highly in that type of self-discipline and regulation, what they're finding is actually they don't have to use it as much, that they have arranged their environments to eliminate temptations or to really support whatever the behavior is. So it's not that they're any better at saying no to cookies than I am, it's that they don't have as many cookies in front of their face to say no to. And when faced with it, they're probably going to take it just as much as anyone else would. So relying just on self-control and willpower alone usually isn't enough. The antidote to this is managing your environments. So what can you set up around you first and foremost to remind you of your new goal? It's new, you're busy, you've got a lot going on. It is really easy to forget that there's a new thing you want to do for weeks until it rises to mind again. So can you put a reminder in your phone, hang a picture on the door? I've had some people put Post-its on their steering wheels in their car, like whatever you can place around you that's just going to bring to mind, oh yeah, there's something new I want to try today. And then again, eliminate whatever temptations. If you're trying to change an old habit, can I get some things away that remind me of that old habit? And can I bring some things in that support my new habit? I was talking to someone in coaching once, and this is something I'm going to try. I've shared it with others. It was her idea. She was preparing her gym clothes to get ready to go to gym in the morning, I think. And instead of just preparing her gym bag for like Monday, she prepared gym bags for the whole week. Kind of like meal planning for a week, but it was gym planning for a week. So she could just like grab a bag every day and it was ready to go. That's how we use our environment to support the new thing that we're trying to do. It made it really easy that week for her to get out in the morning. So you've got others that you can look through here. I believe that brings us to the end of our material, and we're just about in time for questions. So if you have any questions, please use your microphone. We'd be happy to discuss.
These are all the health coaches that are at your disposal. If you ever want more support and accountability, we have a lot of coaches in different areas. We don't usually tell people our area because we can help you, really set goals in any area. But we have exercise physiology. We have masters of public health. We have dietitians, counseling. So lots of a variety of backgrounds. And when we work with our members, typically it's we mentioned the things like the exercise, the nutrition, the stress, the weight management. The quitting smoking, the stress, all of those kinds of things are most common. And our program's really flexible. If you ever want to talk to someone, it's completely free. It's what we work with your schedule. The session, the phone calls they could be 5 minutes, they could be 30 minutes. It's really up to you, depending on how much support and accountability you need.
Any questions? Going once? All right, let's give Amanda and Adam a round of applause. Thank you so much. Our next Lunch and Learn will be on February 21st on Heart and Brain Health with our Chief Wellness Officer, Dr. Bern Melnick. That'll be back at the Ross, so feel free to register for that, and we'll see you next time.